if I'm right.
Okay, so, hi. I notice there's quite a lot more people in here than usual. Well, thanks a lot, and make sure to strap yourselves in, 'cause there's a lot new stuff coming around here.
Come on. Is that really the best you can do?
What do you mean?
Think about it. 10,000 pairs of eyes watching your every move, analyzing your every thought, judging all of your creations.
Oh, can you shut up? I can barely operate normally. I don't want to imagine what the pressure could do to my already fragile mind.
Suit yourself. But you know they will all leave sooner or later, just like everyone in your life does.
Moving on. Raven's gemstone has cracked. Wait, what? Putting her demonic form at risk from getting out and destroying the world, so her father Trigon decides to join forces with his alternate version from the original show, so they can both steal her powers and reign supreme across all dimensions. Okay, so this movie should be called Teen Titans Go! Meet the Teen Titans, because to be honest, even though the writers did attempt to bring back the writing style of the original show for certain parts, the humour is basically just Teen Titans Go! Which is not entirely a bad thing, mind you. But putting that aside, I have to say, I did have more fun with this one than the actual cinematic release, and I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know if it's because the story is simpler, the plot is better structured, or because it focuses mostly on Raven, which I have to say is the only character in Teen Titans Go! I genuinely like. So yes, I ended up being pleasantly surprised. The humour seemed a little bit less random in here. There's a lot more of imagination regarding the whole alternate dimensions plot point. There's a beautiful rendition of the Teen Titans score on the opening credits. And, well, the whole Raven conundrum on how she'll come to terms with both herself, literally and figuratively, it's handled pretty well. For Teen Titans Go, that is. But yes, just like the previous film, this has some rather pointless detours. Some jokes seem a bit out of place, especially with the villains, and I'm still not a fan of rap songs in children's films. So in a strange way, I would recommend this film, not mainly for the Teen Titans Go! Fans, if there are any above 12, but for the fans of the original show, as this film encapsulates some of the best aspects of the reboot, while also giving you a familiar face to hold on to. And who knows? Maybe you'll too find a couple of good surprises here and there. Johnny Bravo goes to Bollywood. When Johnny Bravo finds out everybody no longer cares about him, he decides to take one last shot at fame by going to Bollywood. In there, he will meet new allies, new foes, and all sorts of kooky and fun characters, all while he learns that fame is not what matters at the end of the day. So if you are familiar in any way with Johnny Bravo, you already know his stories are not so much about plot, but more about the jokes that can arise from scenarios Johnny gets himself into. And yes, this is pretty much just that, but honestly, that's completely fine. Since the movie makes it clear that this is not something you should take that seriously. I mean, one of the lyrics from the opening song says, "It's Johnny Bravo, so don't expect much." Meaning that the people who worked on this knew pretty well this is just a harmless comedy to give people a good time. And yes, it excels pretty well at that. Johnny is still the same lovable dumb musclehead he has always been. The new characters are well defined and colourful, And even though this was made like 7 years after the original show ended, the humour and pacing are still recognisable with a nice couple of updates here and there. So yes, this is pretty much an enjoyable time, especially if you like the show. Is it perfect? Well, no. Just like the other films so far, if you don't like the original show, you're probably not going to like this film. And while it's not a major problem, the film is pretty dated. Like, remember the last time you saw an Avatar or Twilight reference in a film? Yeah, me neither. But regardless, I think those are minor problems. And I don't really have much to say about this one since, well, you can't really spoil it. But in all honesty, I had a lot of fun, and I do recommend it for both fans of the old show and new viewers looking for a good laugh. It may not have a rich character development, drama, or complicated plot lines, but just like the movie teaches us, you don't need to be a big star just to enjoy the little things in life. Okay, stop, wait a second. What's with all the spider webs? They're clogging up all the screen. Ugh. Oh, you know what, let's just continue, I'll get the feather duster out later. Now, where were we? Oh yes. The Bears' latest scheme to become internet famous has gone horribly wrong, to the point that there's now a federal agent looking to separate and return them to the wild, under the excuse that bears do not belong in human society. The bears, not wanting to be separated, decide to become fugitives and escape to Canada, in the hopes that they will be accepted for who they are. And so the chase begins. Will the bears reach Canada before the agent tracks them down, or will he succeed in separating the bears? Oh well, what do you think? Well, it might not actually be what you think. At least it wasn't for me, since I actually had high hopes for this film and got immensely disappointed to the point that I think this is perhaps the messiest film on this list. I mean, the whole movie has a political subtext, which it's just as subtle as Jack Nicholson's mental breakdown in The Shining. I mean, even a 10-year-old knows this is way too one-sided. The villain, who actually had a good enough introduction, was never developed. I even thought the writers would at least give him some sort of interesting or complex reason for doing all of this. But no, he's just a jerk that likes to hunt animals. I mean, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but The Simpsons and Open Season did a better job at this. The central message, which it seemed that it was going to be about the futility of internet fame and the importance of family, got solved just before the third act, in a very anticlimactic way, just so they can bring forth the subplot about discrimination and integration. They have a lot of meme references just for the sake of saying, oh, look how dated this is, and it's all well and fine, but it's a bit overdone, and not that original. And through research, I found out this was meant to be the conclusion for the show, which, to be honest, just left me feeling more confused, as this didn't really add up to anything significant to the main characters. The side ones are absolutely absent for most of it, and is this really how the bears met? So many side stories, and they just met randomly on some train tracks on a pointless Stand By Me parody. Ugh. Now, I could complain about this movie all day, but yes, unless you are a huge fan of the show, and I mean huge, I would recommend skipping this one both as a film and as a conclusion. Ghastly Tales for Spoiled Children, the movie.
Nice Google Translate.
I beg your pardon?
You didn't translate that yourself, did you?
Lady, I'll let you know I'm actually trilingual.
Oh, great. Now there's 3 more ways people can insult you.
Oh, can you stop it already? All you do is nag, and I'm sick of it. I don't care who or what you are, but I know one thing for sure.
Yeah? And what is that?
that no matter how much you try to belittle or mock me, that won't even make up for how empty you feel inside. And you know what? I may be pathetic in your eyes, but that doesn't even come close to how sad and desperate you look every time you come here. So do me a favour and scram!
Fine.
Oh, that was easier than I thought. Okay, so this movie is based off a Brazilian show that centres around Pepe, a mischievous 12-year-old that lives with his grandmother, who happens to be a witch. They live in a universe where everything related to horror is basically a normal occurrence. Think Casper's Scare School, but mean-spirited. So I guess this movie is meant to be some sort of final episode, since it brings forth that Pepe is actually an orphan and that his parents were part of some secret conspiracy that possibly got them killed. So now it's up to him and his friends to go and find his parents, reveal the truth, and mix booby jokes with infanticide. God, I love Brazil. So yes, two things. One, this movie is a lot calmer than what I expected, since the few episodes I saw were dealing with stuff like murder and selling your soul to the devil. And two, even though I'm not a big fan of this art style, and yes, the movie does take its time to get going, I think this movie is completely okay. Really enjoyable even. I really enjoyed the relationship the characters have. The animation and the colour palette are really something to look at. And of course, this movie already has an unfair advantage over me, since I love all things creepy and scary, especially in animation. The only major problem, and probably one of its only downsides, is that I'm not sure you can see this movie with English subtitles on. Regular Show, the movie. After a washed-up future version of Rigby crash lands in the park, the group finds out that the universe is coming undone, all because Mordecai and Rigby accidentally created a time anomaly the moment they destroyed a time machine prototype their high school coach was working on all those years ago. So the coach wants to claim revenge by separating Mordecai and Rigby and letting the anomaly to fully develop so it can destroy the known universe. So the adventure is on for Mordecai and Rigby, as they'll have to go to the past to stop this nightmare from ever happening, fight the coach as well as themselves, and find out things about their past that even they weren't aware of. Okay, so I stopped watching Regular Show like mid-season 5 or something, since for me it seemed to be getting way too repetitive and dragged out, especially on the relationship department, so I may not be the best judge of character for this one. But regardless, as usual, I think this one is fine if you're a fan of the show. But if not, well, it's complicated. Because on the one hand, it's Regular Show after all. They do have an amazing sense of humour and fantastic writing style, especially with the references, the characters, etc. But on the other hand, this film is full of problems from beginning to end. Just like We Bare Bears, I could fill this entire video just talking about this movie, but I'll try to go into the problems as fast and clear as I possibly can. Okay, so for a show where the Earth and universe are threatened every other week, this doesn't feel like that big of a thing. Mostly because there's hardly any build-up to it anyway. The time travel stuff doesn't really make a lot of sense in here if you really think about it. Although then again, saying that, not a lot of films do when they use the time travel trope. And even though I like emotional scenes, they do seem to be a little bit by the numbers with this one. And the progression towards them again is a little bit dragged out, to the point that I was almost yelling, "Swap the letters" at my screen. And finally, for a show that focuses heavily on the villain of the week format, this is by far one of the weakest bad guys I've seen on this list. Unclear and messy motivations, underwhelming portrayal, and the resolution, well, kinda left a stale taste in my mouth. Come on! This is the past of two guys in a dead-end job who never went to college and have consistently screwed up on their lives. The idea of them being able to meet their younger selves and come to the decision of either altering their lives or leaving things as they are could be damn right fascinating. Take this movie and compare it to Exit 9B, for example. In there, the stakes were lower, but it felt bigger, because it attacked the core of the show, putting the park and the personalities of all the main characters at risk of disappearing. And like any good special or final episode, it knocked it out of the park in terms of leverage, since it brought back all of the past bad guys for an amazing final act. In here, it's just Mordecai and Rigby against the coach, who, well, in my opinion, is not that interesting or impactful overall. Again, I do like the film, and even though it does feel cinematic, I would highly recommend treating this more as an extended episode rather than a film. I mean, if you're a fan of regular show, then by all means, watch it. But watch it at your own risk. Because, well, if you don't like the final product, you can't say I didn't warn you. An evil candy army has risen from the underworld, right on Halloween's Eve. So side characters like Erwin, Hoss Delgado, General Scar, Jeff and Fred have all teamed up to save the world, thus creating UnderFist. Okay, so a bit of a backstory about me first. I actually hated this movie the first time I saw it. Not because it was bad, but mainly because it was mostly advertised as a Billy and Mandy movie rather than a spin-off. And even then, it basically came out of nowhere while the other show was still going on. So needless to say, I was left rather confused as a child. Believe it or not, this was actually meant to be the pilot for a series that never got made. And while on the one hand I think this could have had some real potential, on the other hand, well, I don't know. I never really liked Erwin that much on the original show, so the idea of making him the protagonist from the new one didn't really sit well with me. And as for the other characters, well, Fred Fredburger becomes a bit overused, just like in the original show. And well, to be honest with me, I feel like the writer struggled with giving General Scar dialogue or even a purpose for being in the final act. So you're probably asking yourselves now, is this movie any good? Well, let me tell you that not only was I wrong as a child, but I personally think this is Cartoon Network's funniest film, and amongst Maxwell Atoms' best work. Yes, this movie's not perfect, and if you don't really like Billy and Mandy's type of humour, you're probably not going to enjoy this as much. But let me tell you, it's full of great things. I swear to God, this film barely takes a break. This is constantly joke after joke after joke, and in my opinion, most of them land. And yes, I may not be the best person to talk about comedy, since, well, my humour can be quite strange, or at least that I've been told. But it seems I'm not the only one who thinks this. For example, Gun Bunny says, "I love the self-awareness in UnderFist Halloween Bash." Erwin will mention something along the lines of, "Not in my movie." I've always been a sucker for characters that break the fourth wall, like in Chowder, Ed, Ed and Eddie, and of course, Billy and Mandy. And on top of that, the animation is really something to look at for a holiday special. They include various songs and that amazing closing theme. And talking about music, the creator of Chowder and Maxwell Atoms as Jeff share this musical number about never growing up, and it's hilarious and so cute. So, there you have it. If you're ever bored on Halloween, then make sure to put this shindig on for a watch. You thought I was going to say silly film, didn't you? Oh, finally. So that's 3 down, 2 more to go. So I guess I'll see you by next... Oh. Oh. What the dickens? Oh, biscuits.
Well, I know that I scared